Welcome to Season 2 of the Natural Dog Mum podcast. I'm really excited to share the first episode with you. We had a chat with one of my personal gurus when it comes to natural dog care, also the author of the very popular The Herbal Dog book, Rita Hogan. We covered a lot of ground. We talked about skin sensitivities. We talked about immune system. We talked about gut issues and the connection between all of these things. And importantly, we talked about a common misconception among dog owners out there. What if it's not actually allergies? So if you've got a dog at home that has itchy skin, that can't stop chewing its paws, recurrent ear infections, gut sensitivities, you'll definitely want to tune in for this one. Hope you enjoy it. Hi, Rita. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's such a pleasure to chat to you again.
I'm excited to be here. It's awesome.
You probably don't remember, but I met you very, very briefly at Canine Masters last year, and you very kindly autographed a copy of your book for me, which is pretty much my Bible. I tell everybody to get a hold of it. So yeah, very, very, very excited to talk to you again.
I'm totally excited. Yeah, I do remember you at the Canine Masters in Melbourne, and I just had a great time there. It was so great. It was just wonderful.
It was absolutely amazing. I'm really looking forward to this year's again. I can't wait.
Yeah, I won't be there this year, but hopefully next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're going to be a little bit busy. I mean, you've only recently finished your tour for the Herbal Dog, and you've got another book coming out later in the year. So you're going to be flat out.
Yeah, I've got writing in the future for sure. So I'm excited about that too. You know, books are a really good way to communicate different types of things so people can take their time with it and digest it according to their needs. And I really feel that there are books that are lacking in that department.
I think so too. Very, very much so.
I mean, lacking books. There's some great books out there, but giving people a little more guidance, that's the feedback I've always gotten. I know that milk thistle does this, but how do you actually use it? That kind of question.
Exactly. On top of the fact that there's been so much new research that's come out in recent years as well about the effectiveness of plants as medicine. So, we're able to give people so much more insight, not only in the how-to, but for the more sciencey folks, okay, this is how it works and this is why it works.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In herbalism, there's science, but then there's traditional herbalism. And I kind of always try to bridge those together as much as I can. But, I always tell people that, I don't need science to tell me that milk thistle works, but it is nice to know like what constituents there are and what is science is finding out about these herbs. The problem is that there's not a lot of funding for herbal research because there isn't a lot of money to be made.
That's very, very true. I would have to agree with you there. But it certainly is useful. I find for myself anyway, when I'm speaking to newbies who haven't really had, I guess, the experience to work with plants and different foods as medicine, some who are maybe a little bit skeptical, having, a research body to refer to, it just helps to give it a little more credibility when you're trying to walk them through that door.
Absolutely, for sure. I have a lot of references in my book.
I noticed that, which is where it's very handy for those of us who are speaking to the clients. I don't actually do consultations like you do. I have physical products. So I have the organic skincare line for the dogs, but I do a lot of chatting behind the scenes with customers, whether they've got questions or if they need advice on which product. I also like to ask questions and delve a little bit deeper because there is still this common misconception out there that if there is a skin issue, slapping something on it topically is going to make all your problems go away. So many people still don't see the connection to the gut and what's going on inside the body. So I'm constantly talking to people about what's the situation with their tummy, what are you feeding, what are their poos looking like, all of those sorts of things. And they sort of look at you like you're a little nuts to begin with. But it's just so important. You absolutely cannot fix the problem without a combined approach.
No, you definitely cannot. For sure, you cannot fix the problem without a combined approach. And I'm glad that you talk to people about that. That is, it's a beautiful thing.
Just well, I mean, for me personally, I just feel like there are so many people out there who really want to do better for their dog, and I want to support them in that however I can. I've had animals my entire life. They've always been, my favorite part of, life on this planet. Anything that I can do, to help people make their lives better, help them be comfortable, happy, live well as long as possible, I'm more than happy to do that. I don't make any money doing that, but that's not why I do it.
Yeah, there's the puppies. It's, when people are frustrated, that's one of the things is people get really frustrated and they just want to suppress symptoms, and I really believe in making animals comfortable, but we don't want to suppress the symptoms so much that it drives the disease farther into the body. That's a big important thing.
Absolutely.
The skin is definitely a representation of what's going on inside, for sure.
Definitely. Now, I wanted to talk to you about some of the more common issues that your clients are presenting with at the moment. There's always a lot of talk in social media and everywhere about allergies. I certainly get my fair share of customers who have issues, but a lot of people get very confused about the difference, say, between a food allergy or an environmental allergy, or even just what might not be an allergy, but might just simply be reactivity or sensitivity. What's your experience?
So, allergies in general, the word allergy, really not an allergy. It's a sensitivity. Usually allergies will cause some level of anaphylaxis. So, I think that our words are kind of messed up. I know that in my book, I do say the word allergy because that's how people recognize, but uh, there is a distinction, and usually it's a sensitivity to something. And I think that's a good distinction to make in general. But when a dog has allergies, the immune system gets very confused and it gets hyper vigilant as well as overstimulated, and when it becomes chronically overstimulated, we get a chaotic immune system. And that can lead to definitely can lead down the road if it's not taken care of. It can lead to things like lymphoma or mast cell tumors or, really the intolerance to eat so many proteins. So we do need to look at that and kind of deconstruct it and help our dogs' bodies deal with things better. And usually I can trace most of these things back to antibiotic use.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. There are huge issues here, and I'm sure you've noticed it as well. Just in terms of the overprescription of antibiotics, coupled with the fact that your average pet owner doesn't really understand what they could be doing or what they need to be doing in supporting the dog's gut, if they absolutely must be on antibiotics, what they can be doing to make sure that they're not absolutely destroying that poor dog's gut.
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of people, like in my practice, a lot of people will tell me, well, he did antibiotics 3 years ago. And then, let's just say it was 2023. He did antibiotics in January, and, this didn't start until June. It's the antibiotics. And if we do absolutely nothing to a dog, first, their current microbiome before the antibiotics will never return. And if we do nothing, it takes 2 years alone doing absolutely nothing to help kind of level out and repair. Well, in those 2 years, a lot can happen to a dog being uncomfortable or developing food sensitivities, not digesting proteins well, and that's going to make the immune system hyper reactive, and also can cause things like leaky gut, or leaky gut can cause the sensitivities. I think the overabundance of antibiotic use is the main culprit in these types of sensitivities.
Yeah, it's huge.
Also, uh, yeah, and also we need to look at, so when I see a dog with sensitivities and allergies, I always explain to people that this is the gut, but it's also the liver and the lymphatic system. And we need both of those systems online to heal. So I usually focus on that because when the liver is when the liver isn't working correctly and it's stagnant, it's congested, it doesn't have the bandwidth in which to deal with the sensitivity. So you see dogs with like grass allergies and different sensitivities to pollen and stuff, and that is just a stagnant system. If the liver was working correctly, and it wasn't congested, it would be able to deal with those grasses and those trees and things like that. But when it's so stagnant, it gets the sensitivities and allergies get more compounded.
Absolutely. And that's one of the first things that I actually say to my customers when they're describing these sorts of symptoms, these sorts of sensitivities is, while it's absolutely important to look at specifically what's causing the reactivity, they also need to go right back to basics and look at the health of the gut. And if they're not sure what they're looking at, if they don't know what the dog actually needs, I'll refer them to one of a couple of different specialists that I work with to look at doing hair mineral testing, to look at what's actually going on inside the body, where the liver's at, where the gut's at, to make sure that any nutrients that they're deficient in can be corrected and get them on some sort of gut reset to get the gut nice and healthy so that you've got a good foundation before you then move on to treating other things.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what are the sorts of symptoms that you're seeing in terms of the actual immune reactions, rashes, hot spots, itching, all the common ones?
Itching, biting, licking, hot spots, rashes, hair loss, crusts, sometimes, sebaceous cysts.
Mm,
These are all like skin issues. And the issue, like whenever you have skin issues, you can know that the elimination organs in your dog are not working
yep,
like they should.
yep.
So, and a lot of people will focus on the condition of dogs' poo. Well, I've seen a lot of dogs get diagnosed with cancer with excellent poo,
Mm.
right? We cannot rely on poo as much as we think we can. I mean, I get quite a few people that would describe their dog as healthy, but can't eat can only eat one protein, right? Or have to have things like Cytopoint every month. These are masking symptoms, and it's really hard to read the body when it's being suppressed like that. Now, I know sometimes people need a bridge, and a dog who's ripping their skin off, that's a different story, right? That's very highly advanced, and sometimes we might need something to help that dog not do so much self harm, but that's not normally the case, and I think that we need to work on getting out of the mindset that we have to do everything we can if our dog has even a single symptom to get rid of the symptom, and we just start chasing the symptoms, when really it's the elimination organs and the lymphatic system and gut that are the problem with almost every allergy I've ever seen,
So,
and it requires patience.
absolutely. Yeah, that's the number one thing that people need to know. It's not a quick here's a pill and an overnight fix. It's something that that is going to take time. I mean, as you rightly said earlier, it takes a good 2 years to heal the gut. Sometimes it can be a little faster with a little bit of help, but you've got to go at their pace. Unfortunately, some dogs heal faster than others do. Um, it's just the way nature works.
Absolutely, for sure. And it's hard sometimes to have patience, but we have to. We need to afford our dogs the same patience we have with ourselves.
Absolutely. So when a client presents with a dog that has these sort of symptoms, where do you normally start in terms of coming up with a plan?
When a client comes to me with allergies and sensitivities, what I will do is create an herbal support protocol. But another thing that I will do is that I will look at them comprehensively as an ecosystem. What are they eating? What are their treats? What is their complete medical history? Look at their vet records and see what vaccines have they had? When was the antibiotic usage? Because it's almost always there. And what have they done that hasn't worked? That's huge. It speaks volumes. There's so many things that you can tell from something that doesn't work and how long they gave them. How long did they try? Uh, how long did they use something for? These are all things that can give me clues onto what will work. And then, of course, chapter 3 in my book, Energetics, I like to figure out their energetics to make sure that this dog is being fed an energetically appropriate diet, because they're obviously not well and probably cannot tolerate the like the ver I would say a variety like I would love to see dogs have, but a lot of these dogs cannot tolerate it.
Very true, and it also helps determine the path forward in terms of the plants you would be recommending as well. For example, one of my dogs runs dry and hot. She always has ever since a puppy. So if I am in a situation where I need to be giving her something to, say, reduce inflammation, I've got to be very careful with things like ginger and turmeric with her.
Absolutely, and burdock would be perfect for her. Yeah, no, energetics really does dictate the palette in which we're going to choose from. That's really important, and a lot of people don't understand that, so I help them understand why that's so important. I think things really open up from there. I work like, for instance, in my book, page 137 is a page that works on organ health, and so the first thing I do with almost any dog, unless we're dealing with like an emergency cancer situation where they need support right away, I will stabilize the nervous system, because that's going to make every organ system work better. And so we're going to do that first. And then I'm going to work with the lymphatics. Then I'm going to work with the liver. Then I'm going to work with the digestive system. And then I'm going to work with what the complaint is. Because by the time we get to the complaint, usually they are so much better. Or we stabilize the nervous system, add a lymphatic, and then we work on what's called an antibiotic recovery protocol so that we can give their gut what it needs to help repair. But it's much easier to repair the gut when the nervous system is more stable and the lymphatic system is being stimulated.
Absolutely. So can you give us maybe an example of a herb or two that you would use to support those systems in recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if your dog is a cool dog, which means they're looking for heat, they're laying near heat, they like to be covered up. If you can't figure your dog's energetics out, then just pick cool. That's my theory on that one. But if your dog's a more cool dog, I'm going to reach for an adaptogen to help the nervous system. So I'm going to reach for like something like ashwagandha, and it is interesting. I like to use flower essences. In Australia, there you have some bush flower essences that are lovely. Flower essences can really help with calming the nervous system down. And then for the lymphatic system, I use what's called cleavers for dogs that are warm, calendula for dogs that are cool. There's a lot of lymphatics that you can use. Even turmeric is has a lymphatic component. That's mainly for cool dogs. And I usually get those things on board first, and for about, I would say, 2 weeks to a month, and make sure our dogs are comfortable. So might use something topical to help make them comfortable, or maybe a homeopathic remedy, and then like arnica for inflammation. And then I get things going. I might use nettles as well to help calm the itch, or quercetin and nettles together, or quercetin, as a lot of people call it, quercetin. Uh, and nettles together to help calm down some of the itch and get them comfortable so that we can work within.
Absolutely. So, are there any particular patterns that you've noticed in your experience with certain breeds of dog that seem to have more problems, or is it something that's more across the board where it's related to antibiotic use?
I think dogs that, well, antibiotic use is number one for me. Number two, diet related. Certain diets are really hard on the liver and lymphatics, like kibble diets. especially ones that are really low grade and also lack that are people aren't giving enzymes to. That's really hard on the liver and the lymphatics. I mean, the liver's just breaking down kibble all day long, all night long. So that's really hard on the body. It causes a lot of early aging. So I think kibble diets can be really hard for dogs with allergies. And I would say a predisposition in breeds. Well, bulldogs are a definite breed that tends to have a lot of allergies. French bulldogs. I haven't seen it so much in pugs at all. Boxers tend to have some problems, but bulldogs and Frenchies are definitely, you know, what they joke here in the States that they're a second mortgage, and rightfully so.
True.
But if you know a dog is predisposed, then you can start out you can start out with them and be very careful. My thing with antibiotics is I don't recommend them unless your a dog is their life is threatened, right? I try to deal with things topically or internally, but if their life is threatened, if they have a tooth abscess or a sinus abscess or something in the lungs, um, or an infection like that might turn into sepsis, absolutely use the antibiotics and absolutely use the steroids, right? These are the antibiotics and steroids save lives, but they're just being given out like candy now, and it is the answer for everything. And that's making our dogs sick.
Absolutely. The other problem that I would argue is right up there as well is over vaccination.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For sure. For sure. But you know what? I don't even know why I forgot vaccination. I talk about it all the time. But yeah, over vaccination hyperstimulates the immune system. So it causes that chaoticness that we don't want. And there's some vaccines for dogs. I don't know about Australia. I don't know what the vaccines are there, but there are some vaccines for dogs here that the vaccine alone can cause damage. And some that have been taken off the human market and are still being used on our dogs.
That does not surprise me, unfortunately.
No, it's the big one.
It's something that's very much on my mind at the moment. As I mentioned when we started, I've got a litter of puppies here at the moment. And unfortunately, from a legal standpoint, even though I would prefer not to vaccinate them at this point, in order to sell them to their forever homes, I'm legally required to give them at least one before they leave at 8 weeks. So what I do firstly is I leave it until as late as possible. Many people vaccinate them from sort of 6 weeks. I don't do it until 7.5, literally a few days before they leave, so that I've got time to watch at least for initial reactions. I make sure I give their new families a really good puppy pack so that they know what symptoms to look for if there are any issues. I also give them herbal support to reduce the chances that they're going to have a reaction. Same with worming as well. I don't use chemical wormers on my adult dogs at all. I do everything naturally. I don't vaccinate without titer testing, and they haven't needed vaccinations for the last 5 years. But with young puppies, unfortunately, some of the natural intestinal worming options aren't as effective as they are in adults. So even though I haven't wanted to, I've needed to at least give them a couple of puppy doses while they're in my care, but I've combined that with a couple of things to support their tummy. Ground marshmallow root sprinkled in their meals over a few days, and also a few drops of aloe vera juice just to try and support their bellies.
Good.
I didn't want to do it, but unfortunately, with that small, that it's a necessary evil.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Goodness gracious me. Sorry, they're scrambling and trying to get out at the moment, so I'm always a teeny little bit distracted and on guard. They cannot be trusted for 2 seconds.
I'm sure they can't.
Oh, they're absolute shockers. They are far too smart for their own good, and yeah, outsmarting everybody right now. Do you have, I wonder, a particular case study that you can talk to us about, a particular dog that that really spoke to you, or a case that that just stands out?
Oh God, there's so
There's probably
many
thousands.
of that. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I did have one. I mean, I don't know, just one dog that stood out. There was a dog that had, I would say 70% hair loss, yellow crusting all over the skin,
Wow.
um, and itching, scratching, just super inflamed skin. And we used a spray to help with. I'm sure, like if you went and got to the vet and got scraped, it would have secondary infections and things like that. But what we did is we changed the diet. We added enzymes for about 6 months. We worked on, and of course, there were lots of rounds of antibiotics involved. So we worked on, for about 6 months, we worked on the antibiotic damage, which, the hair grew back, the itching and scratching stopped. For a while there, we had to put socks on so that, so he could itch, he could scratch, right? But he wasn't damaging himself, right? He could get his little scratch on, but wasn't damaging himself. And there wasn't, what I could see, too much yeast involved, but there was yellow crusting. So we dealt with the bacteria. We worked on the inside as well. Definitely I used an herb called yellow dock, which is very indicative for crusting. We did some salves on the outside just while we were working on the inside. But it took about 8 months, but that dog grew all of its hair back, didn't itch and scratch anymore, and was able to eat a varied diet.
Excellent, excellent. They're the stories that we love to hear, aren't they?
Yeah, well, yeah, I love it. With I've had a lot of good luck with protocols in general, but sometimes it can be something super easy. I always like to go over my super easies, which I can't count the number of dogs that have come to me with severe skin allergies, and it's just like Tide or Gain detergent. And it's the detergents that people are washing their clothes in, and the dogs are allergic to them. They're sensitive to them, and it makes them itch and scratch. I can't tell you the number of people that I'm like, okay, so first thing we're going to do is, before we meet, you're going to stop using this detergent on everything, yourself, everyone, right? And we're going to do that for a month. And it's amazing how many, like, he's not scratching anymore. Or plug in air fresheners.
Yeah,
They land on your hair and your fur, and they breathe them in. It taxes the liver, it taxes everything. And those are real bad too. So, cleaners and things like that, when we clean up our environment, sometimes these types of things go away.
absolutely. Especially your cleaning products that are loaded with ammonia. It's just nasty, nasty stuff. And anything with artificial fragrances, even your scented candles, that make the house smell pretty, hugely problematic.
Yeah, they're very problematic. So, you just slowly make little choices, and changes, baby steps to clean up the environment of your home and to try to use more natural fabrics. Uh, I try to use organic whenever I can for with things my dogs are laying on, and for myself. I might have to wait for things to go on sale, but I do try to pick it when I can, because here in the States, pesticides and herbicides are real nasty.
I don't think they're any better here either. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm the same. I will buy organic everything as much as I possibly can. That's why I went 100% organic with my products as well. The ingredients I was already using were premium and human grade, but because my line is targeted specifically to dogs with sensitivities and reactive skin, even the slightest chance, I just did not want to take that chance of a dog having a reaction to something. So
No.
even though I'm not certified, majority of my ingredients, probably 70% are certified organic. The rest are what I call organically grown from small producers who employ organic farming methods.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
just not certified because most of them can't afford to be. And then you've got a few things that are
Yeah,
wild harvested as well. I mean, your clays and things can't be organic, but they're literally coming from nature, from a natural source. And a lot of the herbs that I use in my products as well, again, they're not certified, but they're wild harvested, so there's no chemicals involved.
I love that.
I'd just rather be safe, you know.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, something I'd like people to more people to learn about. Hence the reason for this podcast and the blogs and the content I put out as you do, just to try and get the word out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that absolutely is the word that we've been using nonstop tonight. I keep hearing both of us say absolutely, absolutely.
It's probably me.
I think it's important. I think it's important. It's important to get the word out. It's important to let people, the more people can understand that pollution is a problem. And I think that the more people that understand that our environment is so important and we want to reverse a lot of this pollution.
I absolutely agree, and there I said it again. And the other thing I like people to be aware of as well is what they're using in their garden or fertilizing their lawn, where they're walking their dogs as well, because they're tracking all of that home on their paws.
And yes, and people are being exposed to it as well. We don't want to use anything on our lawns that is toxic for ourselves and our animals, and for wild animals and insects. It's so important. I recently saw a commercial. I was at a bar and I saw a commercial for this hardware store here in the United States, and they had a picture of before, which their lawn had dandelions, and then after, which it had nothing but green grass, and the before was grass and dandelions, and I thought, what a travesty to be promoting that ish.
Yeah,
Gross.
absolutely. It's no different here. It's all more of the same. Really, unfortunately, it's just getting the word out there. People have been so programmed for so many years by these huge corporations, you know, that they think it's okay, and they really don't understand the damage that they're doing, and especially with our pets, because they're lower to the ground, and they're smaller. They're absorbing way more than their little bodies can tolerate.
Yeah, way more. Absolutely, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so lovely to talk to you. I could do it all day long, but I'm sure you have other things to get to. So thank you again. And for anyone who hasn't read it, The Herbal Dog, that's your Bible. If you're wanting to help your dogs, there we go. Book twinsies. That's your go-to Bible. If you're wanting literally a step-by-step guide to treating all manner of different things at home, and things that you can do to support your dog if, God forbid, you do need to use conventional medicine. There's so many great ideas in there for things that you can do during that time to support your dog's system, to minimize any potential damage. And look, if you're a plant nerd like me, it's just an all-round good read. And I'm very much looking forward to the new book coming out at the end of the year. Can we tell them what it is?
Oh yeah, it's the Herbal Cat, and should be out by Christmas.
Excellent. I'm so
Yes, for
excited for
sure.
that. And I know there are a lot of cat people in Australia, probably everywhere, that will be really excited about that. The poor cat community has really felt a little bit left to the side for a long time when it comes to natural health and products and all these sorts of things. They're going to be thrilled that there's something like this out there that is just for them. They're going to be super excited.
Thank you. It's so great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh, well, thank you so much for having me on.
It's
I,
a pleasure.
so much appreciate it. Thanks to your audience and everyone. And it's late here, so I've been yawning, so I apologize. But it's our time difference is a lot.
It is.
So yeah, I'll probably just be heading off to bed. So
Oh, goodness me. We've still got a whole afternoon ahead, and I'm a bit of a night owl. I don't generally go to bed before about 3 a.m., so I'll be up for a while yet.
oh, I guess so. Well, you'll be up with those puppies too. Thank
Yeah,
you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
no problem.